the problem of all disciples remains the same. This is to live simultaneously the acutely sensitive inner life of the pilgrim upon the path of life, of a human being in the world of human events. To live the group life of the pledged disciple and the mass life of humanity. To fulfill his own spiritual destiny through the medium of a controlled personality, and at the same time to participate fully in the life of humanity upon earth. This is no easy task. Assume the attitude of the observer. Envision your etheric body, your aura, which includes your health aura. Envision your astral emotional aura. And finally, your mental aura, encapsulating your express etheric radiance and your place upon the path of evolution, your personality instrument. See the outline of this sphere, these auras, in a unity. Now, imagine the interconnections, the elemental and devic streams flowing, relating, connecting these auras as a single unified field, and sound the words of Roberto Assagioli. I have a body. I am not my body. I have emotion. I am not my emotions. I have a mind. I am not my mind. Now, lift the attention within this united sphere to the highest point, deepest point of life within your being, the soul, and say, before we begin, let us align as soul and as a group and see our group approaching a CDK study. I am the soul. I am light divine. I am love. I am will. I am fixed design. We enter into a beam of directed focused light, revealing a greater light and illuminate the way to the center of the light, directing our way. Using the sign of the cross of divinity, let us sound the protective formula. As the soul, we work in light, touching forehead. And darkness cannot touch us, touching center of the chest. We take our stand within the light, touching left eye. We work, and from that point, we never move, touching right eye. Now, merge with the group present and your current service groups in the heart, mind, and heart in the head, and sound the mantra of light. Radiance we are, and power. We stand forever with our hands stretched out, linking the heavens and the earth, the inner world of meaning and the subtle world of glamour. We reach into the light and bring it down to meet the need. We reach into the silent place and bring from thence the gift of understanding. Thus, with the light we work and turn the darkness into day.
How do we begin to prepare to address illusion? And as a group, begin to use the techniques of the presence. So Master DK gives us a few definitions of illusion that we have entered into our minds and hearts and being before at other sessions. And let's just briefly review them today. Illusion is the result of the thought form making capacity of the mind and is that which has to be dissipated by the light of the soul. Illusion is the product of the higher mind, glamour of the astral nature, and Maya of the physical. Illusion is the seed of wrong mental attitudes, of false interpretations, and of erroneous conclusions. A very important and large topic for us to begin to address. Several years ago, we began the study of the science of the relations and then moved to linking the essential relations to our developing knowledge and application of this knowledge to the understanding of our rays and the developing of virtues of those rays. We then can embody positive harmlessness in using the technique for the dissipation of glamour and enter into a closer relationship to the presence, which is required to move forward to dispel illusion. So let us integrate and explore what we need to remember in relation to thought. For, as we are told in the Ageless Wisdom, energy follows thought, and when the eye is opened, all is light. We reviewed this section of a treatise on white magic previously, but let's remember today that Master Dwalkul says that words clothe ideas and that all books are prison houses of ideas, and only in the future, when speech and writing are superseded by telepathic communication and by intuitive interplay, will the plan and the technique of its expression be grasped in a clearer fashion. He goes on to say, I talk now in symbols. I manipulate words in order to create a certain impression. I construct a thought form which, when dynamic enough, can impress the brain of a transmitting agent such as yourself. In the teachings, we're given the constitution of man, and this is a briefer summary of that in terms of the whole unity of what we could call the mind of God on all the levels. And since he tells us later, we'll review the exact definition he gives us of what thought is, but there is thought on each plane, each level. So as human beings, we are on the lower 18 subplanes, but this gives us the entire picture of from the mental unit to the planes of the causal body, the soul vehicle, which includes manas, and then moving to the spiritual triad, the Buddhic plane, the Atmic plane, and then the monadic plane, where the presence lives and moves and has its being. We're told that the archetypal plane of the Logos, whereon he forms his ideals, his aspirations, and his abstract conceptions, is the logoic plane, that first plane of the cosmic, etheric plane. As we move through the studies, keep in mind these planes or subplanes, as they're called, where first the abstract concept is formed, then the medium is provided for the manifestation in form, and finally of that form itself. The great ones, whom we all seek to serve, are thus linked, and can, at the slightest need and with the least expenditure of force, get en rapport with each other. They are all tuned to a particular vibration. In Telepathy in the Etheric Vehicle, DK goes on to say, in the new groups are collected together people who are very diverse in their nature, who are found upon differing rays, who are of different nationalities, and who are each of them the product of widely varying environments and heredity. Besides these obvious factors which immediately attract attention, there is also to be found an equal diversity in the life experience of the souls concerned. The complexity of the problem is also tremendously increased when one remembers the long road which each has traveled and the many factors emerging out of a dim and distant past, which have contributed to make each person what he or she now is. When, therefore, one dwells on the barriers and difficulties supervening upon such diverse conditions, the question arises at once: what provides the meeting ground, the common meeting ground, and what makes it possible to have an interplay between the minds involved? He says the answer to this question is of paramount importance and necessitates a clear understanding. The simple answer to that question is telepathic rapport. And yet we've learned that in order to develop telepathic rapport, there is much work that we need to do together, contemplatively as we study, in meditation together, and in service. So let us, as we continue to work on the dissipation of glamour and the dispelling of illusion, remember that through this service, we are learning to develop a telepathic rapport that serves to be a bridge across the barriers that we may face, given our individuality and the many aspects of our uniqueness. And from the Agni Yoga teachings, take heart, as Master Morya said or gave to Helena Rarick. I say as much as is necessary and possible. An instruction should be accepted like a battle command. Right now, help is needed. It must include not only unity and solemnity, but also the intensification of the heart's striving in our direction, and that is the direction of the hierarchy. Seekers should cast away all extraneous thoughts in order to make our transmissions easier. A flaming heart is deeply significant. It is actually a cosmic magnet. The most difficult thing for people is to acknowledge their own cosmic significance. Nobody is averse to flying off to the heavens, but here on earth, too, a person's significance is great. So we breathe into this thought. We unite and together build a telepathic rapport through our contemplative work together in these sessions, through our meditations together, and in service, so that we can become part of this cosmic magnet that will bring humanity into relation with soul consciousness. A way that we can remember some of the important aspects of the teaching that we've already covered is to think about telepathic communication in 3 different ways. We can think of it in relation to the building of the Antakarana and the middle funnel, this channel between the first initiation up to and through the Christ consciousness, the Maitreya, the one Christ principle of love wisdom. We can think of it also in terms of the development of what in the East is called the ajna system, this ability to utilize, as we do in the protective formula, the left eye of Manas and the right eye of Buddhi, and build the spiritual eye. And then, through the progression of service, meditation, and study, and as each initiation is passed, raising that vision to include identification at a higher point in terms of the constitution of man. So in the first level, we have the sight of the 18 subplanes, and then we move into and through the vision that is created with the spiritual eye and the soul vehicle. And then we begin to touch Buddhi and intuition, great expansion in terms of vision and sight. In the center, there's an image of the tree of life, and we can use a focus on the heart center, the hierarchy of our planet, the heart center, the 12 vortices of the heart, carrying the virtues of the heart in any group, and utilize that image to move us up into the higher realms. Martine, would you continue?
The function of the etheric body is to receive energy impulses and to be swept into activity by these impulses or streams of force emanating from some originating source or other. The etheric body is in reality naught but energy. It is composed of myriads of threads of force or tiny streams of energy held in relation to the emotional and mental bodies and to the soul by their coordinating effect. These streams of energy in their turn have an effect on the physical body and swing it into activity of some kind or another, according to the nature and power of whatever type of energy may be dominating the etheric body at any particular time. Through the etheric body, therefore, circulates energy emanating from some mind. With humanity in the mass, Response is made unconsciously to the rulings of the universal mind. This is complicated in our time and age by a growing responsiveness to the mass ideas, called sometimes public opinion, of the rapidly evolving human mentality. Within the human family are also found those who respond to that inner group of thinkers who, working in mental manner, control from the subjective side of life the emergence of the great plan and the manifestation of divine purpose.
Let us take a few moments to just let this sink in to the mind of our group, those of us here today, and think first about your own etheric body, the myriads of threads of force, the tiny streams of energy that are held in relation to the emotional body and the mental bodies, but predominantly to the soul. And this coordinating effect consider the streams, these threads, having an effect now on the physical body, swinging it into this activity. As we oriented and aligned, and as we do that before each meeting, think about the type of energy that is dominating your own etheric body at this time. And consider through the etheric body, this energy is emanating from some mind. And now consider from that point, the highest point that you can touch and reach and envision within that mind. And send a point of light into the heart of the etheric body of our group. Say on that stream, send the word that is the virtue of the soul that you are embodying at this time. And now let us turn our attention and draw in all of that contribution from all of those who are part of our efforts to serve, all the groups with which you serve, and the emanating virtues from those groups. and we sound the first sentence of the third dispensation of the great invocation. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of all, men and women. Let light descend on earth. So we align with the new group of world servers. For that group, that subjective group, is aligned with the inner group of thinkers who are working in mental matter, control from the subjective side of life for the emergence of the great plan and the manifestation of divine purpose. A synthesis of certain sections of slokas from Heart. True solemnity is built upon the highest degree of tension. Solemnity is not rest, not satisfaction, not the end. It is precisely a beginning. That is resoluteness and a march forward on the path of light. Solemnity combines in itself ecstasy, ascent, a shield against evil, and a turning to the hierarchy. So, solemnity is salutary, but it must be perceived and maintained in all its wondrous refinement. It is with good reason that the reflection of solemnity is considered luminous. The chalice of the heart demands solemnity in order to be filled to the brim, as it were. There is beauty every time someone takes part in the building of the new world. This is the true domain of the heart. This longed-for purification of life gives rise to the solemnity that shines forth like an inextinguishable light. The heart has been strengthened anew, and fully conscious access to the hierarchy and the subtle world has also been granted. But it is only the heart that will lead one to the fiery world. The quivering beat of the rhythm is unavoidable, but what we feel will be solemnity. Let us turn to the foundation of the fiery world, to approach it instantly and joy. Harmony and cheerfulness are needed. Take very good care of the heart. Understand the solemnity of love, which ignites the silver thread with the citadel of the highest heart. The self-development of straight knowledge awakens solemnity of feeling. So as we move forward together, bringing into our minds, guided by the higher minds, this straight knowledge that can awaken in humanity this solemnity of feeling.
Telepathic communicators function predominantly on the mental plane, working in and with thought matter, and with the reception and direction of thought currents. We aspire to develop the mental purity and clarity that provides the space, the interlude of the stillness and serenity that fosters a clear, focused mind that is free from personal bias, emotional disturbance, and mental clutter, ensuring that the communication received and distributed is in harmony with the divine plan and serves a higher purpose. What is thought? We are told that energy follows thought. But what does that mean for us? Master Dwal Kul defines thought as a dynamic energy that manifests differently across planes, governed by cosmic laws of the evolution of consciousness. What is a thought form? Master DK says a thought form is the result of two types of energy. First, that emanating in the first instance from the ego, soul vehicle, or causal body, on abstract levels, the higher mind. Second, that originating in a secondary sense from the man on the physical plane, through the medium of the brain, concrete mind. How are thought forms telepathically communicated? With a process of stepping down rates of vibration until they are sufficiently heavy to affect physical plane matter and thus make possible the building of organized effects on the physical plane. Telepathic rapport. Soul to higher mind. Soul to astral body. Higher mind to mental body. Mental body to mental body. Mental body to astral body. Astral body to astral body. Experiment, experience, expression. Energy follows thought.
This quotation from Telepathy in the Etheric Vehicle, that thought forms are telepathically communicated through a process of stepping down rates of vibration until they are sufficiently heavy to affect physical plane matter, and thus make possible the building of organized effects on the physical plane. Would anyone like to share their thoughts, their ideas, their just reaction to that expression from Master DK?
You know, when I think of this, I think of the influence that we have on those energy threads of the etheric body. And the influence is the mental and emotional influence. And how, if we can bring those into control and calm and peace and joy and love and compassion and all of the soul qualities, that actually creates that lowering of vibration. You know, it creates a heightening of vibration, but to me, that vibration becomes much more pure and light. And as a result, it sort of descends in a way that creates an opening, so to speak, because I think in telepathy, we have to be at a stage of development where there really is just this profusion of kindness and love, and the absence of those lower emotions, because that's what will sort of keep the fire of telepathy alight. It is not going to be a space in which there is negativity and anger and hate and shadow. It will be a place that is so uplifted in light and love that that vibration will be so pure and crystalline that it will be able to transfer easily within that, within, what's the word, within the minds of all. But I don't think mind is quite it. I think it takes a step away from brains and minds and thoughts and becomes a flow of something else. And maybe that is part of those etheric threads, because there's purity in those at their highest level as well. But as I read it now, and it talks about stepping down into heaviness, I just, that word heavy just doesn't work with.
As you were speaking, what came to me is the when one passes through the veil to the other side, the heaviness is left behind. You know, what we are constructing on the physical plane is heavy. We carry it around with us, you know, this matter that then the soul has assembled around our being. And I was thinking about materialism, you know, as a glamour that we have created a heaviness that does, in a way, when we do the glamour technique, the technique of light, it brings that light down to the astral field, at least. So there are many ways to just breathe into the light as not the opposite of heavy, but as the thought on that higher plane. The thought on the Buddhic plane is so much lighter. It is filled with light. And then on the higher planes would be filled even more. Let's see what...
And I wonder, too, if the word heavy could be replaced with the word sufficiently dense, a density to affect the physical plane, like something that can sink into water versus float on the top, something that can penetrate because it has a higher density. And density, to me, doesn't have the same, I don't know, emotional content as heavy.
There's a comment, very intense in energy, the statement of DK. It takes us to one soul and also heart. And it requires us to remain harmless in thoughts. It speaks to a huge responsibility. Thank you, Martine. When one thinks about telepathic rapport at the different levels too, you know, the astral body to astral body, that kind of telepathy, which, you know, most of us are familiar with. It is a heavier light, even when it's light. It's heavier than, in my experience, you know, it's a different intensity of light because it's astral light. It is not the higher light. let's take a look at this. Ben, would you read this for us?
The topic that affects us very closely, namely, the attainment by man of that group consciousness, which is his goal, and the expansions of his little consciousness until it measures up to that greater one, which enfolds it. You will remember that in trying to explain the difference between self-consciousness, group consciousness, and God consciousness, I illustrated it by pointing out that the little atom of substance in the physical body, that tiny centralized life, which goes to the constitution of the human form, we had a correspondence to the self-consciousness of the human being. That the life of the physical body, considering it in every one of its departments as a whole, is to that little self-contained cell what group consciousness is to us. And that the consciousness of the real man, the informing entity within the body, is to the atom what God consciousness is to us, as inexplicable and as far removed. We can extend this concept of the atom in our body and its relation to man, the thinker, to the human atom, regarding it as a unit within a still greater body. We may get an understanding of the radical difference between these three rays of consciousness.
And this is from Alice Bailey and her book, Consciousness of the Atom. Consider the sense of group consciousness that you have experienced in your group work, your group service, particularly in meditation. Have you any experience of the expansion of the singular consciousness, individual consciousness, measuring up to a greater one and then a greater one? Do you have any experience of that? And does it relate in any way in your consciousness to light and a growing telepathic rapport?
There becomes sort of a fullness that I find in group meditation, and it's the same feeling that I get in my heart when I'm with all of my family. It is this beautiful sort of diversity that is actually one and is focused on one another and on a purpose. Um, it is more expansive. It becomes so much more than the self, and in that, one feels the power and the limitlessness that we as a group can purposely distribute and create.
And in the comments, yes, It is difficult to explain in words as it is energy. It may be the word oneness, the expansion outside of one's individual sense of consciousness to a far greater sentiency of consciousness that is different from the concrete consciousness of living in the physical body or even in one's own individual meditation. Thank you again, Martine, for your comment. Something to keep in mind as we move forward. This is just to bring forward from something that we introduced before, this idea of, as we go through all of these interconnections, ideas, ideals to illusion and to the science of relations, and the use of these different techniques, that we want to keep in our minds and the group mind the vibration, light, sound, color, and motion of these energies that are drawing us into closer relation with the higher or the next expansion of consciousness. It's part of this whole journey that we're on together. And it relates directly to the funnels and to the tree of life as images. Heike.
The nature of revelation. Initiation is, in the last analysis, the reception of a series of revelations. Revelation is an expansion of light and is experienced as an unveiling of that which was previously hidden behind the veils of illusion, glamour, and Maya. It is the unveiling of spiritual truth through the soul and eventually through the monad. For the first initiation, the veil that is lifted is the partial veil of Maya, and the revelation given is the recognition of the soul as the true identity. For the second initiation, baptism, the veil lifted is glamour, and the revelation given is the understanding of the path of purification and service. For the third initiation, the transfiguration, the veil lifted is the illusion, the revelation of the spiritual triad, the true self. For the fourth initiation, the renunciation, the veil lifted is Maya, fully lifted. And the realization, the revelation is the realization of monadic life, spirit as the ultimate reality. The fifth initiation, the revelation, the lifted veil is the final veil lifted. And the revelation given is the perception of the plan and direct contact with purpose. And with the sixth and seventh initiation, we all will be beyond the veils. And the revelation given is the synthesis, the planetary and solar purpose. Each initiation lifts one or more veils that obscure reality and thus allows the initiate to see, to know, and serve at higher levels.
This is a summary given to us from one of the AI apps, ChatGPT, that was trained by one of our group members. It's interesting to think that we're told that humanity is now at the first initiation, and that this is only the partial veil of Maya is being lifted. But this recognition of the soul as the true identity, and so many groups now are focused on developing soul consciousness in humanity in a meditative endeavor. And it's interesting to think about how do then we engage in our daily lives as well as our service lives to assist humanity in recognition of soul as the true identity. Something that we might consider recognizing when we see it in the world. It's also interesting to think at this fifth initiation is the status achieved as master. The fourth initiation is adept. And the third initiation, it is initiate. It's the first major initiation. Any thoughts, any ideas that are important to share in relation to this summary?
I think when we look at humanity as a whole, the first initiation, we can see a lot of that in the development of psychology, and where much of psychology and therapy is about unidentifying with certain parts or integration. And I think that is a part where humanity is already on that, working on that. Who am I? On looking, who am I really? Starting to look for it and starting to search in a mass consciousness, I would say.
It certainly is evidenced by the number of people who are pursuing understanding of their self and their relationships and wanting to improve and bring a higher sort of compassion and wisdom into their relationships, whether they're working in a corporation or teaching or whatever they're doing. Their aspiration is that higher aspiration to do goodwill.
I also think that the masses are being exposed to the diversity in who am I, and that we all bring something unique and different into the wholeness of humanity. And whereas we all, not so long ago, thought we were all the same, there's that beauty in the recognition that we all bring something unique.
And from the comments, the master turns to the disciple at the third initiation, for the disciple is a reliable instrument, and there is close contact, a close telepathic rapport that is established. That is, as one student said, there's no turning back. The soul cannot be lost after that transfiguration occurs. So we had looked at this before, these levels of thought, and we'll look in more depth at each thought function. And I thought it was interesting the way these were described on the astral level. Emotionally reactive visualization, lower mental concrete form manipulation, and kama manas, desire-driven intellect, to help us distinguish these thought functions that relate to getting lost in glamour and illusion. And I encourage you to take some time when you're preparing, and let us today visualize together the achievement of the goal for each of the distinctive planes of the lower mind to become the radiant mind of the path of discipleship, receptive to hierarchical impression. Let's do it very briefly and with a kind of lifting out of the heaviness of the physical realm. So we visualize the astral plane and the astral body of humanity just in your mind, and a few suggestions from images of the astral plane of humanity that have been shared online, different creations that show that astral light. We see humanity immersed in that light. And now let's see or visualize the emotionally reactive ideas and thoughts in that astral light that humanity has created. These fogs and clouds, let's visualize them gradually dissipating with the goal of the purification of all desires of the lower bodies being gradually achieved, the emotionally charged thought forms being dissipated. And gradually, the astral plane becomes a clear, transparent surface for the reception of soul light and soul guidance. So we visualize a clear, transparent field. And now visualize the concrete mental plane and the brain of humanity. And see the effect of clearing the clutter, the chitta, the thought forms that are a result of selfish manipulation of matter. See these thought forms falling below the level of conscious consideration. They evaporate, they disappear, the goal being achieved through detachment from matter. The lower concrete mind becoming a resonant field for the reception of soul light and soul guidance from the higher mind. All selfish desire-driven intellect being erased. The mental banks of humanity, ready for the incoming energies of the avatar. We're told we study symbols conceptually to carry us inward from the brain to the mind into the realm of ideas. Symbols helps us to sweep our mental apparatus into a focused activity, and then we become aware of the concept or idea which the sign or symbol embodies. So we stand in the new group of world servers. Let us create new symbols. Symbols that allow us to comprehend the meaning that is coming through telepathically from the hierarchy, through the masters and the adepts, and for what it stands. Help us to grasp the purpose for which the form has been brought into manifestation. So, creating your own mind, those symbols that elevate your consciousness, symbols that attune, orient, and align with the group purpose, shared motive, and intention. So when a symbol is suggested to you in meditation, create the most vibrant, real image from the higher level and create it with appropriate tension for group integration and fusion to take place. Whatever that symbol is, use it regularly and with that tension. However you decide to move out of using created for you images and symbols and move into that higher point in group service. So we're told in esoteric teaching that all three aspects of divinity are themselves triple. And hence we can divide the energy of the mind, as far as humanity is concerned, into three aspects: the lower concrete mind, the abstract mind, and the intuition or pure reason. The lower concrete mind relates brain and mind, and we use this in the technique of light. The abstract mind relates higher mind and soul. We use this in the technique of light, and with sparks of monadic impress, we can use it for the technique of the presence. It requires of us a dynamic will and group purpose. The intuition or pure reason, which is for man the highest aspect, is to achieve the transition of identification to the state of mental polarization and soul fusion. So as those who are practicing the technique of fusion are learning to contact the intuition, the pure reason of this very highest aspect of our mentality as humans. And DK goes on to say in the Rays and Initiations, the true understanding is, he says, not possible for you, but much can be gained by your effort to comprehend. What you mean when you speak of the abstract mind is not exactly true to the facts. The effort to think abstractly is really an effort to think as far as possible as an initiate thinks. Let's pause there for a moment and consider that initiation of transfiguration, the third initiation. And then the fourth, when the causal body is destroyed. The initiate thinks, who has transcended the concrete mind and thinks, or rather is aware, in terms of life and not of form, of being and not that which anchors being on the physical plane, or in terms of consciousness as you understand it. Forget not that I have elsewhere told you that consciousness, as grasped by the personality and the soul, has little relation to that form of living awareness which distinguishes the initiate who is essentially an expression of the monad through the medium of the three aspects of the spiritual triad. And this is the achievement of the fourth initiation. So as Martine noted, at the third initiation, we become reliable instruments. And Ben offers to relate us back to Alice Bailey's description. He says, atomic matter is crystallized energy, becomes heavier than. We are radiatory always, whether we are lifting or pushing, with our thoughts and energy. Exchange what we now believe for total loss of self. So that total loss of self occurs. And as DK says, the true understanding is not possible for you, but much can be gained by our effort to comprehend. So we act as if, knowing that eventually true fusion will be achieved. But as we move along, we are achieving, in a way, through each step of the integration process, a kind of fusion. We had talked at a previous session on kama-manasic thought, and I popped it back in here so that we would, the AI summary included this word cosmic, and I think it's important for us to know that this does exist on a cosmic level in a way. And we read why we should care about expanding our understanding of this type of thought. And it's because the emotional tension in which men and women live today, playing their part in fitting humanity to emerge into the realm of clear thought, that this is indeed a significant turning point in human history and will be one of the results of Christ's future scientific work with the hearts of men, bringing them into rapport with the heart of God. So we'll look a little bit further into this, but just to recenter us on what this kama-manasic thought is doing in the world right now, that it is appearing as all those things that are distressing nature in the world. It's of a distressing nature in the world, the wrong manipulation of mental matter by man, and dangerous conditions brought about by the united creative attempts of human beings down the centuries. This is this accumulation of glamour and illusion and almost the glorification of it. So the question for us is, how do we use discrimination in order to discern the difference between the astral thought that is the glamour and the kama-manasic thought? Those two have a difference. There's a difference there. And then a thought that's devoid of astral coloring. Has anyone really had any ideas that express how we can use discrimination and build discrimination into our what usually is called the critical thinking process in education circles. But how do we use that as disciples? Something to ponder. Shirley, would you read this for us?
Oops. Yes, from a treatise on white magic. This concerns the astral body, the body in which a man is preeminently polarized, and of which he is more potently conscious than of any other body. The etheric body is really below the threshold of consciousness. Human beings remain unaware of the passage of forces through this vehicle, and the nearest they get to the recognition of it is when they speak in terms of vitality or lack of vitality. The physical body makes its presence felt when something goes wrong or through the gratification of one or other of the appetites. Quote, the situation is, however, different in connection with the astral body, for there is the vehicle of experience for the majority, and few there are who do not pass the greater part of their conscious life recording the reactions of that body and vibrating between the two poles of happiness and misery, of satisfaction or non-satisfaction, of assurance or doubt, of courage or fear. This really means that the inherent force and life of the emotional sentient vehicle govern the life expression and mold the experience of the incarnated soul. End quote. Quote, all astral energy is part of the astral energy of the solar system. And the question, how are we able to distinguish between the astral body and the astral plane to use the technique of light?
Hold on to that question and let's look at this summary that we were given by asking one of the AI apps to look through DK's teachings exclusively. And I caught it because it used an additional source. So that's one thing that we are learning as we work with these thought-forming apps, that one has to be really careful when you're asking it to look for specific definitions. I thought this one was particularly interesting in terms of the astral plane, thought on the astral plane. Shirley, would you read the definition and this content that we're given?
Yes. Thought on the astral plane. Definition. Thought here is emotionally charged, serving as a bridge between desire, astral energy, and mental abstraction. It manifests as reactive energy, which is governed by moods, feelings, and mass emotional currents. For example, collective panic, or euphoria. It also manifests as creative visualization. The astral plane pictures forms through imagination, which mental energy then directs. This process builds a line of energy linking astral and mental levels. And the function? Astral thought is inherently distortive due to glamour, illusions of desire. It traps consciousness in emotional residues, requiring purification to ascend.
So when we're developing symbols, and when any one of us develops an evocative symbol, it is really important to note that we are engaging astral thought in building these images, which the mental energy then directs. Just be conscious of that in the use of these. And I'll give you an example of where different images can take people to a place where we're not intending for them to go. One of the colleagues in the studies over the years revealed that the image of the it's often used of the statue of the Christ figure above the Brazilian city, Rio de Janeiro. It's often used as a symbol that this created a reactive energy in that, for most people, it would bring them to a kind of euphoria, a mass emotional current of aspiration. For this individual, because of the unfortunate experiences of a sibling in one of the groups oriented toward that image, it created the opposite feeling, the opposite mood, the opposite feeling, and it directed mental energy in a different direction. So just being careful of what we utilize, because it can trap someone's consciousness in emotional residues while we're assuming that it's taking us higher or that the group is coming together, to really be conscious and be aware of the telepathic impact of the images that we use. Ellen.
Apart from the constant circulation through his astral body of planetary and solar and cosmic energies, every human being has appropriated out of the greater whole enough of the astral energy wherewith to construct his own individual and separate astral body, responsive to his peculiar note, colored by his peculiar quality, and limiting him or not according to his point on the ladder of evolution. This constitutes his astral ring-pass knot, defining the limits of his emotional response to life experience, embodying in its quality the range of his desire life, but being at the same time capable of tremendous expansion, development, adjustment, and control under the impulse of the mental body and of the soul. It is subject also to vibratory activity as the result of the interplay between it and the physical plane life experience. And thus, the great wheel of experience is set in motion and will persist until the Four Noble Truths of the Buddha are understood and realized. This astral body has in it the counterparts of the etheric or laya centers, and through them stream the forces and energies earlier dealt with into the etheric body.
So this idea that we, or the soul actually, before we are in physical form, appropriates out of the greater whole the astral body of planetary and solar and cosmic energies. And this is that connection back my question when the AI app put cosmic into that astral summary. This teaching from DK directly relates to why that came up, because it is this great whole, the cosmic astral plane. We create our own individual and separate astral body. Have you ever thought of the separativeness of your astral body? And even though it may be a first ray, second ray, sixth ray, fourth ray astral body, it is separate. It is responsive to the peculiar note colored by your or my peculiar quality, and limiting or not. So consider thinking of someone we might consider an enlightened being. The note, the peculiar quality of that enlightened being that comes through their astral body, as the transparent, clear, almost glass surface, where the purity of the astral field, their astral energy is sensed and known. But it is a peculiar note only for them. That's a big concept, that differentiation within the astral field of astral energy. Does anyone have any experience of noting that? If you've had any experience, not with that attractive, transparent astral body, but with the opposite, the experience of working with very severely emotionally disturbed children, where they're, especially in the teen years, where their astral body, they may have been diagnosed with the same challenge disorder, but their peculiar note or their peculiar quality is so apparent, and how it's limiting them is so apparent. It's just so real when you are in a situation with them, versus another particular individual who has maybe the same diagnosis, but is really demonstrating in their own peculiar way, with their own peculiar quality, the density and the, well, I guess I would describe it as kind of a torment of that separative astral field that they're working through. I'm going to add Martine's note in here. The pairs of opposites on the path, known as the dualities, exemplified by Arjuna's battle and the help of Krishna. Arjuna, the personality, and Krishna, the Christ figure, the soul figure. Thank you, Martine. Let's go on for maybe, yeah, we'll close with this. Ellen.
Interestingly, in Reappearance of the Christ, Master DK makes reference to the astral bodies of the Buddha and the Christ. In the East, there is an ancient legend which has an application today and holds the clue to the relation of the Christ and of the Buddha. It concerns a service which the legend says the Buddha will render Christ. In symbolic form, the legend runs that when the Buddha reached enlightenment and experience on earth could teach him no more, he looked ahead to the time when his brother, the Christ, would be active in the great service, as it is called. In order, therefore, to aid the Christ, he left behind him for his use what are mysteriously called his vestures. He bequeathed and left in some safe place the sum total of his emotional, intuitive nature, called by some the astral body, and the sum total of his knowledge and his thought, called his mind or mental body. These, the legend says, will be assumed by the coming one and prove of service, supplementing Christ's own emotional and mental equipment and providing him with what he needs as the teacher of the East as well as of the West. He can then, with strength and success, contemplate his future work and choose his workers. There is something of this same idea latent in the injunction given in the New Testament. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ. can we think of humanity and the new group, the one world server, as the etheric or Laya centers through which these higher forces are entering and utilizing for achievement? I have heard of these, the Buddha and his vestures and the Christ and all, but up until this moment of reading this, I didn't quite understand what that all meant. And this is such a clear, beautiful, I mean, it's always been written, but now I understand, and it's mind-blowing actually to the possibility of the reappearance of the Christ and what he can bring to the world if he has his own combined mental and emotional equipment and that of the emotional intuitive nature of the Buddha. Oh, my heart is full contemplating that.
And if we can hold that at that subjective level and not rush to try to identify the vessels through which this greatness, this expansion, and this oneness is going to be brought into form. I'm reminded of the treatise on white magic, that statement. Proceed slowly and with caution, and remember that eternity is long. Human beings, I think we tend to want to rush things along and neglect the preparation that we need to do as groups in order to be the recipients of any part of this wondrous great service, the active great service that will be performed and may even be unfolding at this time. So we will begin next time on what is slide 42 today, swirling through a couple of more to get to our closing. Do focus in the PDF on this wonderful statement, boy, the piece of creative bungling that humanity has achieved, that the great ones are occupied in destroying. I just really appreciated that. DK's work with us and what we will ponder over the coming weeks. So we continue on this path of developing some sense of telepathic communication. And let's just breathe into all these great teachings and the wonderful contributions that everyone's making to our understanding and contemplation. And we will meet again next week. And as we close, Mary Gail, would you lead us in this mantra?
I am a point of light within a greater light. I am a strand of loving energy within the stream of love divine. I am a point of sacrificial fire, focused within the fiery will of God, and thus I stand. I am a way by which men may achieve. I am a source of strength, enabling them to stand. I am a beam of light shining upon their way, and thus I stand. And standing thus, revolve and tread this way, the ways of men, and know the ways of God. And thus I stand.
We sound a silent Om in affirmation. Gratitude for your service. And Ben says, this vesture, astral and mental, is for us to assume. The coming one is us becoming one.